This is Dr. Chris's Radio Horror Show here at WCW, and tonight we're talking with a awesome artist I've had the pleasure of following for many years, from his comic book Dead at 17 to his current work that he's going to talk about now. Josh Howard on the show with us, artist, writer. Thank you for coming on the show with us, Josh.
Thank you for having me.
Your art style is rather unique. It's like these thick line kind of characters sometimes I see. How did you master your craft? Where does it come from?
Probably primarily growing up in the 80s and, being on, just overwhelmed with cartoons. And, that was the era of there's a cartoon for everything, and then, sort of gradually segued into comics. And so it was kind of a mishmash of just all that stuff. I think primarily at the time, Batman the Animated Series was just starting, as I'm really starting to draw a whole lot. And so I think that was probably a big influence, at that age.
I can see that. Your women have pointy chins and tips to their fingers. You know what I mean? They've got sharp angles on their body parts and things like that.
Right.
And Batman the Animated Series had that a lot, especially with characters like Poison Ivy, Catwoman, so on and so forth. I definitely see. I didn't even realize that. I was thinking more like manga or anime, but yeah, Batman the Animated Series. You it's like you were taught by Bruce Timm.
Was definitely more prominent early on. If you look at my, since you're familiar with Dead at 17, I had this original black and white version I just did and self-published. Mm-hmm. And if you look at that, it has definitely a lot of more anime, vibes to it for sure. So it's definitely a mishmash, so.
Definitely. For your new book, Black Harvest, I pre-ordered on Kickstarter the second cover, which has, I think that's the Dead at 17 character on the cover with your Black Harvest character, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, because it's the 20th anniversary. So immediately I saw that.
Yeah.
Of course, I also love the absolute, the Howard Comics one that's an homage to EC Comics, where she's got the zombie skulls kind of writhing around her a little bit.
Yeah.
It's funny that I saw that online, and then it was right after that post was made that you were debuting this cover. She returned with a warning they didn't listen, and it's the EC Comic style. Right afterwards, there was a post made by somebody that we're getting Return of the Living Dead Part 6 coming.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and these guys kind of remind me of the Tar Man from that movie, and he's apparently dragging somebody through a cemetery at Christmas time. It comes out late, sometime in the fall of next year.
Okay.
And I was just
crazy,
what a weird coincidence. But for anyone not familiar with the current Kickstarter that's running, which I think ends, tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is Black Harvest?
Black Harvest is... it's a sci-fi horror story. It's basically about this amateur UFO investigator who comes into this town to investigate these strange lights. On his way in, he almost runs over this a girl on the road, and it turns out she's been missing from this town for 3 years, and she's got "repent" written on her stomach, etched into it. And so it's just about, what does this mean? Where's she been? What's the secret does this town have? What are the lights? And it's this whole mystery. This book originally came out back in 2005, but after I did the very first Dead at 17, and it was reprinted in 2010, I believe, at Image.
Uh-huh.
And then ever since then, it's been out of print. So I was like, well, the 20th anniversary is coming up next year. It'd be cool to I don't have any copies myself. It's out of print. It'd be cool to do a new edition, and while I'm at it, may as well spruce it up. And that's what I've done. I've gone back and redone some pages and kind of quote unquote remastered some of the coloring and things like that. So
yeah, the character who shows up with the "repent" written on her stomach, that's Zaya.
Zaya. Yeah.
What is she based on? Anything in particular?
No, I mean, not in particular. I think it was probably, her look is probably just from, think of the time period, probably the emo MySpace vibes at the time. Beyond that, no, nothing in particular.
Did you do a lot of research into occults and and Satan worshiping when you were developing a lot of your work? Because I definitely read it, and rereading Dead at 17 and looking at this and rereading other stuff, it all has this there's this cult vibe to it. You're right. Anti-cults. Cults are bad, and your female protagonists are always trying to fight against them in some way.
Yeah, that's something I've definitely done a lot of research into, and
But you didn't come from a cult like yourself, right? You weren't brought up in a cult. You don't want to
no,
share like some deep dark secret of why your women are always fighting cults.
no. I'm just fascinated.
Maybe
by
Catholic schools are cults, and that's why they all look like Catholic schoolgirls.
it. No, it's just something I'm just interested in, and I'm drawn to those movies and those, I've read a lot of books about it, the subjects, and I don't know. I just think it's fascinating, and it definitely makes for great storytelling fodder. It makes for great, villains, and especially when you give it a supernatural aspect. I just think it's just possibilities are, limitless, and I don't know. Yeah.
Have you ever looked into having like action figures done based on your characters?
That's that's been like my number one dream since like day one.
They look like they could be totally awesome action figures, or at
Yeah,
least a
it's just
statue.
yeah, and it came close once, but it's not something, it's just if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it myself, and I'm well aware of the costs. I mean, to get like the molds made is basically the cost of a new car.
Oh my god, seriously?
Yeah, it's not cheap to make figures.
Well, unless you 3D print them.
Well, true. I mean, we're almost there, so that's a possibility. But yeah, it's something that it's on the table. Once the circumstances are right, it'll happen.
Have you ever you must go to a ton of conventions. I have been bad at conventions this year. I went into like 2 or 3 things with my lady friend recently, and I was like, I should have set up at this. I'm a terrible comic book creator. Do you ever run into cosplayers dressed up as your characters?
But back when I first started, yeah, I mean, it hasn't been as much. Well, I don't do as many conventions as I used to. I've definitely slowed down quite a bit, but yeah, that's something that happened back in the heyday, as you would say.
Maybe it's something I missed. I saw the Zombie Girl. There's a Zombie Girl Dead at 17 team up, or is that just a cover?
That's a cover you're talking about with Dan Mendoza's Zombie Tramp.
Zombie Tramp, yeah.
Yes. He offered to do a cover for me, and I may do a cover or 2 for him. So we'll see.
Oh, okay, so that's just a cover. There's not an actual team up there.
Right.
Okay. Do you have you had? I'm sorry, I have not followed everything you have put out. Have you done any crossovers with characters? I know off the air we were talking about once you did the crossover pinup with Tim Seeley's Cassie Hack.
Back around the same time, I was doing Black Harvest. I did a Dead at 17 crossover with a Devil's Due book called Misplaced. I don't know if you remember that. It was pretty obscure.
I don't. Yeah.
That's
I'm pretty up on most of the old Devil's Due Press stuff, but
yeah, that's really the only one that I can remember offhand. Anyway, not to say there won't be more in the future, but
do you see Kickstarter being like the big way forward for independent creators to get stuff done these days? I mean, it's been like I think it's blown up so much since we were in lockdown.
Definitely been the go-to place the last several years, and I was slow getting into it because I've always had my books in stores. I always wanted to be in stores, and then but at a certain point that it seemed like it was becoming like, I don't know, it just seemed like there wasn't much room there anymore. And so it was like, well, if I want to keep going forward, let's see if I can do this on my own. And I have since 2017. That's what I've been doing. So I've done, I don't know, 7 or 8 crowdfunds now. Lost track.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
There's another book of yours that I actually haven't read, but I want to find a copy of called Rage.
Do you want to know the story with that?
Sure. That's what you're on for.
All right. Well,
I mean, we wax poetically about Dead at 17 and Black Harvest as much as we want, but after a while, we just I can only sing your praise of how great your art is so much.
All right. So here's the story with Rage. Back when I was, an aspiring comic artist, I was just sitting out my stuff. So I had found some local want ads, and it was where I live in the DFW area. And they said, we want local talent for a new publisher starting up. And so I was like, okay, cool. I'll send in my stuff in. And they contacted me, and they had we have this book we want you to draw. It's called Rage, but we really like your stuff. So, and so they were writing it, and so they hired me, and I drew, I don't know, like 3 issues, I think. And they released like a little preview issue, which is out there if you find it. What happened is that when they submitted it to Diamond for approval, it was rejected. So, and it wasn't because of my art, thankfully. It was because they just said the writing wasn't up to snuff.
Diamond rejected it because the writing wasn't up to snuff?
Yeah, yeah.
They can do that?
Yeah, they can.
That's so weird.
I don't know if
The stuff that they distribute is pretty out there, but I digress.
I don't know if standards have changed, but back then they didn't have to approve everything.
Oh.
The company called Viper, they'd invested all this money, and so they go, well, wait, what are we going to do? We have this company we're building. We have San Diego Comic Con they were debuting at Comic Con that year, and they're like, we saw this Dead at 17 ash can, black and white thing in your portfolio. We really like that. What if we put that out? Mm-hmm. Well, because at that point I was kind of moved on. But long story short, I redid it. They picked it up. Diamond loved it, and the rest is history. But so Rage was this thing that I drew that sort of just kind of vanished and went away. But it was the precursor.
Do you still sell your art book? I noticed that there was an art book collection of your stuff, which I thought was pretty cool.
Do I sell art books?
Sorry. You have an art book collection of your stuff out there, I saw.
I've done several, yeah.
It's called Mosh Girls and Monsters, The Art of Josh Howard.
That was one of them, yeah. The first one was called Hips and Crossbones. Those two were published by Viper.
Gotcha.
Back in the early 2000s. And since then, I've done several that I've self-published, but I haven't done one in a few years. But I've been building up an archive, so whenever I'm ready to do a new one, I've got plenty of stuff, so...
What did you ever think of? I saw this years ago. I don't know if you were involved with it, the Dead at 17 fan film?
Yeah, there's a fan film. Yeah, it was cool. I wasn't actively involved. It was someone who said, hey, I want to make a fan film, and they did it, and it was really cool. More recently, it was back in 2016. There was an official short film made.
Oh.
Yeah, and you can see it on YouTube. It's called Dead at 17 Rebirth. It was made by professionals, and it was made sort of as a proof of concept to try to get something else done. And there's a long history behind all that. But
I'm sure.
Yeah, but ultimately, obviously, I'm here talking to you, and I'm doing crowdfund, so I didn't hit it big in Hollywood. It didn't go anywhere. But it's really cool. I really like it still, and people should check it out because I think it turned out really cool. I
started I'm using quotations, career in comics. I have something kind of interesting happening where I work corporately. I won't say exactly where that is. And I pitched them my comic book, and we do not publish comic book. We don't publish anything. We are not a publishing company at all. But my comic book is relatable to people that might be suffering from something. And I brought it to Human Resources and said, hey, we do a lot of things with employees to help them. What if something like this went out through the company? And they were really interested, and I'm still working on that right now. Even though we're not we're not in the comics, so that's something I'm kind of working on. But back to my other thing about your film was that I started working on. I did a film first before I did my comic book. My film was the proof of concept to launch a movie, and we couldn't get the crowdfunding for the movie done. I decided to turn it into a comic book, and then it kind of more became a graphic novel akin to Bernie Wright's Frankenstein. And it's called Vlada, a Dracula Tale. We gender swapped the entire cast of Dracula.
Okay.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And it's got a couple tie-ins to it, a couple comic books. There's a new comic book spinoff coming out next year. Once I'm finished with the comic book that I mentioned, is going to be worked on through corporate to help other employees dealing with issues. There's the next thing I'm going to work on is going back to the Vlada, vampire women kind of universe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. So we're going to go to Kickstarter with it as well. Maybe I'll reach out to you and be like, hey, what's a cover we could do? For sure. So that would be kind of cool to see your lines on my character, Colleen the vampire. She's the apprentice of Vlada, which is the gender swap. Because the Vlada story is done and told or whatever, so we're kind of moving on with other characters within the universe.
Okay, cool. Yeah, just let me know.
Yeah. But like I said, I've always been a big admirer of your work. I read T-Bird and Throttle as well. I absolutely did like that too.
Awesome, thank you.
Where can people go to find you online and plug? Well, at the time this is going to air, unfortunately, Black Harvest will have already been over. But I'm assuming you're doing backer kit.
Oh no, I'm not doing backer kit, but I will have it to where it you can still get the book after the campaign ends.
Okay.
I can't remember what they call it, but yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was backer kit. I'm sorry. It's whatever you want to use, whatever platform. So plug whatever it's going to be on, because when this airs, again, the Kickstarter will be over. Yeah,
so even though Kickstarter will be ending, you can still go to the Kickstarter page and still get the book. So
Oh, I didn't know
which
Kickstarter let you do that, because when I did it like 5 years ago, they didn't let you do that. You had to open up some other account.
they didn't, but they do now. They do now.
Oh, interesting. Fantastic.
Yes,
Cool.
yes.
That's great. Awesome. Well, hey, Josh, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. As a longtime fan of your work.
Hey, thanks, man. I really appreciate it.